On this edition of In the Gun, it's time to preview the Mountaineer offense. A lot of questions. We'll try and find some answers. All of that and more on this edition of ITG.
You are now watching Believe.
ITG.
All the pieces are in place for us to have a chance to win it all.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
There's Owen Schmitt in the building.
Like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Where's he in? He in there, Jed Drenning?
I'm not much of an athlete.
The thing that's non-negotiable was playing hard and playing tough.
And Wesley, Valen, Uhler. You are in the gun.
Because once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 261 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I am Wes Uhler, back from my summer camp in Latrobe. And, of course, as always, I've got the best teammates in the business. I got the signal caller with me on this edition of ITG. Our guy, Big O, the beer truck, Jed, is selling his beer truck and beer, drinking his beer truck and beer at the state fair, having himself a good time. It's now available all throughout West Virginia, so make sure you I tell you what, it's right up my alley, Jed. I know you're not much of a beer guy, but a nice American light lager with a little lime, that's a perfect August beer when it's about 90 degrees out here every day lately.
And the fact that Owen was so hands-on from soup to nuts with what went in it, the recipe that they used, how it was brewed, the design, it turned out really well. It did. And before we go any further, I have to give a shout out. Those of you who haven't seen it, you just mentioned in Latrobe, you just mentioned being a camp. Once again, Wes caught us up with the Mountaineers on the Steelers roster in Latrobe. That was really cool. Some insightful stuff, especially some of what we knew about Zach, some we didn't. Same with Beanie. Beanie's in an interesting situation, as you described, with those battle-tested veterans. There's a lot of hardware in that room now. But Doug Nestor, I mean, that's the part. You spent half the video talking about Doug, and that was interesting. And he played extensively in Jacksonville. You called that one. But I would recommend everybody who hasn't so far check out that episode where Wes got us up to speed on the three Mountaineers. Hopefully every year we add a Mountaineer. Before you know it, 7 or 8 years, we'll have 8 of them up there.
That's right.
But, right now we got 3 good ones. So well played, great update. So if you haven't seen that so far, I recommend you double back and do so. We posted that last week. That was good stuff by Wes.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, I love having Mountaineers to watch every day out there at practice. It kind of breaks up the Steelers' monotony for me in a lot of ways to be able to kind of put on my gold and blue glasses for a few minutes at times as well, too. And it's been insanely interesting. I mean, he opened camp listed as a tackle and doing some tackle stuff, but primarily has been playing left guard throughout the heart of camp. But I've seen him play a lot of right guard as well, too. And as I shared with you guys in the group chat, Monday and Tuesday of this week, the Steelers had an injury to Ryan McCullum, Zach Frazier's backup at center. And so there's kind of been some, hey, we need to get some able bodies here who can play the center position as well, too, at least through preseason. And so the last 2 days, Doug has actually been taking snaps at center, just a couple in team period, both practices, nothing crazy. But then after practice, both days, staying with Steelers quarterback Schuyler Thompson for, probably an extra 20, 30 minutes, whatever, 15, 20, 30 minutes like that after practice and working on center quarterback exchanges. So plenty to keep an eye on with Doug over these final 2 preseason games for sure. He's been all over. Yeah. I think other than left tackle, he's lined up at every place now on that offensive line.
And what's fun about that, Wes, as we know, you're not putting dum-dums at center. If you're going to put somebody even to log some practice reps at center and potentially serve as a reserve at that spot, it's somebody that you have a lot of faith in their football IQ. So that speaks well to what the Steelers think of his intelligence. But he's been very productive, played 50 some odd snaps, wasn't it? Is that what we looked up and found
51,
on PFF?
I think 51.
50 some snaps against the Jags. Graded, I think he led the Steelers in run blocking grade. So, a lot of things, or maybe it was pass blocking grade, pass blocking grade. Yep. What it was. It was vice versa. Yeah. A lot of potential there. And you just never know. I mean, this is a guy who was undrafted by the Vikings, comes to camp, didn't make it in Minnesota. The Steelers saw some potential, brought him in last year, and here you go. He's really making a serious battle to make that 53. But let's see how this goes. Hopefully, by the time all the smoke clears in camp and they head into the regular season, you have three Mountaineers on their 53 in Pittsburgh.
That would be pretty cool. I think Doug is at least because he was on the Steelers practice squad last year. I think worst case
Yeah.
scenario, he's secured himself another year on the practice squad, another year in the NFL, NFL paycheck, NFL job, all that stuff. But his growth has certainly been something. And as you know, when you're looking for those backup offensive linemen, you want the guys that can play two or three different positions for you on
Yes,
game day
absolutely.
because hey, God forbid one guy goes down, but what if two guys go down in the course of a game? That's not unheard of.
Yeah.
That has happened plenty of times before. Proving that versatility can be a big factor in whether you're one of the last guys on the roster, staying on another year on the practice squad. So yeah, while Jed, I'm very happy to be home. I mean, I was out in Latrobe for 3 weeks. I think I've in the last 3 weeks, I think I've slept in my own bed only 3, maybe 4 nights. We had a trip to Jacksonville in there as well too. So I will miss watching our Mountaineers every day, but I am very happy to be back home.
Wes, it's funny you talk about Doug's versatility because I've always felt, look, when you're a skill position guy or even a backer, uh, you demonstrate versatility by what the value you bring to the table or the value you confer to the special teams
Special
units.
teams. Yep.
Offensive linemen demonstrate versatility by being able to play multiple positions as a swing man. That's their version of, you know what I mean? It's
Totally.
like they don't have this quite the same opportunities or different skill sets that apply when playing special teams, though of course they're needed on transition units as well. But when you can play multiple positions like a guy like Doug, but that's great. He's building quite the portfolio for himself. And for that matter, I was having this conversation this week. This time of year is fun. Like, look at what Garrett Greene's doing in Tampa. Because when Garrett signed as a receiver with the Bucks, my biggest concern, and I did a video, wrapping up draft weekend, whenever that was, early May, that I posted the video. But my concern with Garrett signing there as opposed to elsewhere, that receiver room with the Bucks is so deep. But he has turned so many heads through OTAs and now through camp. Todd Bowles loves him and they're
Mm-hmm.
raving about him. So you have to think, even if he does fall through the cracks and doesn't make it in Tampa, I think he's manufactured his own opportunity, if not there, then somewhere else, because of what he's done. Now, I think he's got a shot to make it with the Bucks. I do. I think he's created a shot to make it with that 53. But if he doesn't, other people, other teams have seen
Absolutely.
what he's been able to do. He's a tough grinder. He has the skill set. He has the physicality. He has the twitch and the speed. We know all that. But that's what makes this time of year fun. The Doug Nesters and the Garrett Greens of the world,
Totally.
those stories, those narratives. It's great. Not everybody's drafted. Not everybody has the same situation in camp. So to see former Mountaineers like those guys making the best of their opportunities, you got to love it. But I'm glad it's behind you. I'm glad you're home. Every year I say, hey, I'm going to come up to Latrobe and see. I haven't done it I haven't been to Latrobe since I was 10 and 11 years old, and loved every second of it when I did, back when Bradshaw and Lambert and the whole crew
Oh
were
yeah.
playing. Slapped him on the shoulders, running up the steps. But I got to get back sometime with you. I do. I got to get back up and see you. Every year I say it, and I just don't make it.
Well, hopefully Zach's gonna, dominate the center of the Steelers offensive line for like the next 15 years, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to make it up to see
Exactly.
him and hopefully a couple other Mountaineers in there as well too. But yeah, I should have mentioned this. I'm glad you brought up Garrett. Get this, Jed, you'll be a little bit jealous. Not only will I get to see Garrett Greene in a preseason game Saturday night at Acrisure Stadium when the Steelers host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Steelers also have joint practice with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on
Oh,
Thursday, August 14th, and your boy will be there.
oh,
And as
yeah,
you know this as well as I do, not almost, you see more in those joint practices than you do in the preseason
you do.
games.
You sure do. Yeah,
The coaches love those because they can work on certain things and show certain things that's not going to be on tape in a preseason
that's right.
game. So I'm gonna get a couple looks at our boy Garrett Greene here on Thursday and on Saturday. So maybe I'll have some fun stuff to report for you next week.
Yeah, you got to tell Garrett I said hey. And you, of course, got to get a picture of all four of them together because I
I
saw
know I'm gonna
Wyatt in the picture
try.
with him after the game. Now you got to get
Yeah,
one with
that was pretty
Garrett. Yeah.
cool. I'll have to
Yeah.
see. I'm not sure if I'll be down on the field. They might have me up in the booth doing a show during. I got to figure out how it all goes. But if I get a chance to chirp at him for 5 seconds, I'll make sure to tell him that the signal
Zach in
caller says
charge of it.
hello.
Put Zach in
Put
charge of it.
Zach
He'll
in
take
charge
care
of it.
of it. Yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what he's got a newborn. He's got a newborn now. He's got plenty to worry about. Old
Yeah.
Zach Frazier. I saw him a couple days ago in the cafeteria and made sure to tell him congratulations as Zach and his wife welcomed a little boy,
That
their
is
first
awesome.
child, into the world about a month ago. So big congratulations to the Fraziers on that one.
Good planning
Jed,
too. He got it done
good.
before camp started.
Just in
That's
time, I
right.
tell you what, pretty
Yeah.
close.
That's right.
He
Yeah.
was real
Yeah.
close on
Yeah.
that one, about 3 weeks before
Yeah.
camp started, real
Yeah.
close.
Cut it
Uh,
close. Yeah.
I did want to take a minute here before we get to one more headline before we go to break. I did want to, of course, thank all of our sponsors. A big thank you to Bet Online. We all know the game starts here. And of course, the good people at Toothman Ford. Of course, our guy JR. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. Nobody takes care of the Mountaineers like the good people at Toothman Ford. And a big thank you to our guy Rick Lewis and Fortis. We all know for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed, you got to visit fortis.us.com. And to Johnston Equipment as well. Make sure you're checking out their location on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan.
Yeah. And speaking of Johnston, the again, family operation right in the heart of West Virginia. We talk about that all the time. We love that fact. Uh, I just visited Tim Johnston and Emily, his daughter, this week, and his boy Bryce, who is actually in DO school in Lewisburg, or at least was. He's battling an injury that he suffered recently, and he's a grinder. He's going to bounce back from this thing in a big way. But we wanted to give a shout out to Bryce. We dropped some goodies this week, but like I said, he's Johnston tough, so it's not going to keep him down for long. Johnston with a T, tough. That's two T's. So shout out to Bryce. We know that the Johnston crew listens to the show. We're thinking of you, boss, and we know you'll be back on your feet in no time at all. But you just keep it up, and you'll be back there treating patients before you know it.
That's
He's a
right.
smart cat now. He's a smart cookie.
That's
But
awesome.
had a fun conversation with old Tim and Emily this week, and they're good folks. Good folks.
Yeah, take care, Bryce. Listen, football season's right around the corner here. All right, the team needs you, so rest up and take care of yourself. And we hope all the best for the rest of your recovery, and you'll be ready to roll here in a few weeks as the Mountaineers get ready to roll against Robert Morris. Of course, Jed, Labor Day weekend, 2 p.m. on Saturday, and I tell you what, I mean, if you're looking to get any type of tickets, season ticket packages, you're starting to run out of options because now, Jed, as well, the 304 football season ticket, which we've explained here on the show before, but for those who are unfamiliar, it costs $304, area code of West Virginia, and it's a season ticket where you have a different seat for each game. So you have a different seat for all 6 home games.
Caveat: you can purchase up to 4.
Yes.
Together. That's the limit, but at least you could. Now you can't. Explain why.
Because the 304 mobile passes have sold out, Jed, and all we got left are some limited season tickets still available. I mean, it's unbelievable. I knew that Rich Rod was going to ignite a fire back in this fan base. You know that's one of the things that he started doing from day one when he rolled into the Coliseum and, said that, the only 4-letter word that's worse than lazy and soft is pit, right? And had some great moments right out of the chute there. But man, 32,000 season tickets sold, which is crazy to me. You factor in that I think the student section is a little over 12,000 if I'm remembering correctly. So I mean that's 44,000 ish of the 60,000 seats that are going to be claimed every single game day. Plus the mini plans, plus of course we know visiting team and visiting marching band and stuff like that get allotments. I tell you what, Jed, it's a hot ticket in Morgantown once again for the WVU football program.
It is a hot ticket in Morgantown, and when you game out that first stretch of the schedule, I want to see a sellout against Robert Morris. If we're not there, we will be close to there, but we got to have 60K at Robert Morris. For a host of reasons. We did this against JMU when Neil started back in 2019. We need to have that kind of showing for that Robert Morris game. We know what Pitt's going to look like in week 3. We already know. Okay. And then for that matter, in week 2, that's an interesting little trip. I expect a ton of Parkersburg folks at Peden
Mm-hmm.
Stadium down there in Athens, Ohio, to watch us take on the Bobcats. So that first stretch of games is going to be interesting. But speaking of the 304 package, I have a couple friends who have purchased these things and they rave about these things. I'm like,
I
have you
think
had a
it's pretty
bad seat?
cool.
And they're like, no. It's a cool vantage point. Each new time they place us somewhere else, it's really neat. It's a part of the stadium I've never sat before, and they just rave about this. They said it's a very affordable bargain, all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this year, I think my one buddy just told me yesterday he purchased 3, so they kind of stagger it between who goes and who doesn't, him and his wife, or him and his son and his daughter, whoever's around or available. But it's a great opportunity for folks, and I'm not surprised it's sold out. I'm really
No,
not. It's
it's great.
it's a heck
It's
of a
like 50. It's
bargain.
like $50 a ticket, man. For I mean,
Yeah, that's
6 games. Like you can't beat that.
and it's a great marketing tool. It's a great idea of the administration, because you have the latitude and the flexibility to kind of move people around accordingly to make sure that you're maximizing whatever crowd's on hand. So everybody wins, and you got to love a situation where everybody wins. Now
Totally.
let's just make sure the Mountaineers win, and we'll take care of it all, right?
That's exactly right. Man, I tell you what, the hype and the momentum around the program now, you start rattling off some wins, and it's going to be at a fever pitch. And I'm with you. I think the 304. Listen, I've got my Jed. I gotta make sure I cover my address here in the corner. I got my. If you're watching on YouTube, I got my season tickets right here in the mail the other day. I got my Peach Lot parking passes. All right, for the tailgates with barbecue with the beer truck that are going down here. Uh, and I've explained this to you and the listeners before, but like me and my group, there's 12 of us that have season tickets together. We've gone a little soft, although I don't know if that's even like we just have kids now. So we sit in the boxes because with the kids, you need the weather cover, you need the comfortable
Oh yeah,
chairs, you need all those things for the kids to
yeah,
keep them content so you can actually sit there and watch the
absolutely.
game. But if this was, Jed, if this was 5 years ago for me, 4 years ago 5 years ago before I started having kids, I'd have been all over something like that. Very cool concept, but yeah, I'm
Great
excited. This
opportunity.
is my
Yeah.
this is my 8th year now as a season ticket holder. Ever since I moved back from Philadelphia, to my hometown of Mars here outside of Pittsburgh. One of the first things I did was get WVU football season tickets, and so this will be my 8th year, and fired up and looking forward to it.
Talking about the peach lot, you were speaking of the barbecue. I got to tell you, we talked about the upcoming venture with barbecue with the beer truck. It's going to start game week, and I think Schuyler's even working on a feature, a story that's going to talk about that. But I've been polishing up and putting the final touches on. It's a combination of Ethan Gregory, talented young
Yep.
broadcaster, and small college soccer player. Just kind of a jack of all trades, well-rounded kid, very talented kid. I think he's going to be an up and comer. He's a senior in college, and took on this project to go down there and spend some time with Owen shooting these episodes.
It's awesome.
And as I go through the final edit on these episodes, I can't tell you how hungry I am by the end of the episode. It's
Oh, I
like
believe it.
some of this stuff. I'm telling you right now, Mountaineer fans, you have no idea about this. You might think you know about this hidden talent Owen Schmitt
You
has.
might
You
think you
really
know,
don't.
but you don't
You
know.
don't.
Was
Do
that was
not
that
underestimate his mad culinary skills. He's sitting there talking the science of this type of meat and this cut, and I'm like, where did this come from? Where did this come from? And you don't want to miss this. I mean, they're kind of they're rapid fire, like 15-20 minute feature stories or feature episodes we're going to run once a week leading into each game with one featured, everything from side dishes to
It's
protein
awesome.
entrees. But I'm telling you, it's incredible. You're not going to want to miss it. It's fun. Owen lets you in on his little cooking secrets. People don't know he caters weddings.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, he is a talented dude. Yeah. But you're going to want to see this for sure.
Yeah.
Between what he's walking Ethan through these recipes, and I'm just like, wow. But I've seen 3 of them so far, and they're in the can. They're ready to roll, and I'm starving to death at the end of each of the 3. Even
I
the
can't
side
wait.
dish. I'm like,
I
yeah,
can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah, you may think you know, but you don't know. but you will know. Was
You
that the
don't
famous?
know. You don't
Was it?
know.
Was that one of Jim Mora's famous rants? You might think you know, but you don't know. You're not in the position rooms. You don't sit in the meetings. You're not in the
That's a
locker
good
room. You may
question.
think you know, but you don't
Playoffs.
know.
Playoffs.
Which
Yeah,
is,
that's
of
a good
course,
question.
his most
Yeah.
famous one. But
Yeah.
there was a famous rant of an old school coach going at the media, being like, "You think you know, you don't know." I think that was
Did
Jim
do
Mora
that.
as well.
It wasn't Denny Allen. Denny Allen was they are who they thought we were. We thought they were. Uh, that's a good question. What's funny about that is when an epic rant goes viral and it enters forever into the lore of epic rants, there's something unique and special about it. To this day,
It was Jim
every
Mora
time. Okay, sounds
when
Jim
he was with
Mora.
the when
To
he was
this
with the
day, every
Saints. When he
time
was with the Saints.
that makes sense because the playoffs was with the Colts, right?
Yes, correct.
So uh, to this day, every time we have a game in Stillwater, the post game press conference is done down in the corner. It's a strange setup. It's down below the team locker room, behind the corner of the end zone where Pistol Pete comes out riding the gator. It's right by where you see Pistol Pete enter the field. Right there is the press conference room, and every time we walk in there, I don't care how many times we've done it now. It's half a dozen times we've been to that stadium now at Boone. But one of us have to say, "This is where it happened."
That's
Come at
that's it.
me. I'm a man.
I'm
I'm
a
40.
man. I'm
Right
40.
there, right there. He was sitting right there. Yep. So,
History happened right there, boys. Drink it in.
yep, yep, yep.
Let's
Good
get
old
to our
Gundy.
without a doubt, without a doubt. Let's get to our break here, and when we come back on the other side, we will break down this WVU offense. Man, a lot of new faces, a lot of new concepts, a lot of new coaches. We'll get into some of the personnel and do the best preview that we can at this point with the information
Getting
that
to
we
know.
have. But yes, but if you have made it this far into the video, and obviously I think you're liking what you're seeing, so do us a favor, hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe if you're on YouTube as well, too. It really helps us out. If you're listening on the audio side of the podcast feed, we thank you for your continued support. And do us a favor and grab one of your coworkers or one of your family members' phones, go on their podcast app and subscribe on their phone as well, too. It's a great gift that you can give them here to round out their summertime commute as everybody gets ready to go back to school and into busy season. Talking a little WVU offense when we return on the other side. Wes Uhler, Jed Drenning, you are in the gun. For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
At Coyote, we're going to treat you like dirt because we hold dirt in the highest regard. We're honored to find it under our fingernails. It keeps us humble, honest. If you know us, you know getting treated like dirt means getting treated with respect. Coyote, we dig dirt.
Now at Johnston Equipment, get 0% financing or a free loader with low-rate financing on select Coyote models in stock.
Come check out our new Coyotes at Johnston Equipment.
Back in the gun here as we roll along. It is time to preview this WVU offense. I said this to Jed before we started recording today, and I would imagine a lot of Mountaineer Nation is in the same boat as me, but I feel like I know less about this WVU football team at this point in the calendar year, about, 3 weeks away from the start of the regular season, than I have about a WVU team since I was probably 11 or 12 years old. when I really started following and caring and buying Phil Steele's magazine every year and, spending all kinds of time on the message boards, listening to what people were talking about was going on at practice. And a big part of that, Jed, is the massive turnover, not only on the coaching staff, obviously, here in this Rich Rodriguez 2.0 era of spotting the ball in Morgantown, but also with a roster that has about 70 new faces. It's a tough task here to put together an offensive preview, as we still, I think, have a lot more questions than answers, but we do have, the signal caller and some good information here to get into.
We hope, right? It's the getting to know you still
It's
portion.
exactly right.
I mean, it's going to be
Recording each other.
We're going to be halfway through the season, and there's still going to be some names coming up where you kind of crook your head and you're
Wait
like,
a
wait a
second,
minute,
who is that?
what? Okay, yeah. But I mean, it really is. I mean, some of the kids, yeah, they're holdovers, a short list of them from last year, and then there's a longer list that are holdovers from the spring. But still a lot of new faces, even post spring. So when you have 72 or so new kids, that level of turnover, West Virginia is obviously unprecedented. And really, to some extent, it's unprecedented for Rich. But I think the best thing we can do is let's kind of walk through this. This is not a depth chart. Such a thing doesn't exist. I saw even in Rich's presser,
Yeah.
because it says depth chart on a sheet, people are taking that seriously. Hey, look closely, and you can see that they're
careful.
still figuring that out. He's not here to mislead. If you don't recognize by now how transparent this version of Rich Rodriguez is, okay, he's not hiding anything from you. He doesn't secretly have like 10 out of 11 starters etched in stone. He's just not telling you. It's still being settled. Now, you have some leading candidates at various spots. Some may surprise you, some may not, but there's no firm depth chart at this juncture. That will be coming soon, but it's really a work in progress at this point. And this week's critical. This weekend scrimmage is critical, as was last Saturday's scrimmage. So every rep's going to matter this week. Every rep's going to matter on Saturday. They'll matter beyond that, but a lot of things will start to be settled as we work our way past the scrimmage on Saturday. But that being said, we have our list of our position breakdown by roster, and I was saying, Wes, maybe the best thing we can do, because there are so many new faces, is to start with Coach McNell's crew up front, with the offensive line. However you want to do this, we can work from the inside out, but there's a ton of new faces here. If you look at the center spot, there's a name or two that Mountaineer fans might recognize. Landon Livingston, a holdover from last year. And Landon Livingston was going to have a bright future with the previous staff. And I would say that's kind of continued. He's done a lot of positive things in this system and this new scheme since the spring, and working his way into OTAs and his way into skill development over the summer and into camp. He's really held his own and put together some quality tape. Now you got Carson Lee. That's a new face to Mountaineer fans. Tough, physical, nasty guy on the interior as part of that group. Robbie Martin, Mountaineer fans might recognize the name because we went so heavily after him in recruiting, lost out to NC State. He ends up transferring back home, so he's part of the mix there. So that's what you have battling at center. Now, you have as many as 6 or 7 guys that Coach McNell is cycling in and cycling out, because you want to make sure that you're sturdy at that spot. We just talked in the previous segment about what the Steelers are doing with Doug Nestor. There's a reason you do that. You always want to be as deep as your numbers will allow at that spot, because you want to lack continuity. You want to suddenly look disjointed. Throw a guy into the fire who hasn't really repped snapping the football, and all of a sudden nothing works. So that's why we try and go as deep as we do. And even when you work into the guard room, some of these guys have also logged snaps at center as well. And you have a couple promising transfers, starting with, I'd say, like a Walter Youngbear, who spent some time at Tulsa on the all name team, right?
All name team, baby.
He's a fun guy. He's a fun guy with size and some sneaky athleticism. That's working at that guard spot. You also have Chemo, who transferred in from LSU. Everybody knows he played both offensive and defensive line. like his mentality, like what he brings to the table, like the fact that he's been around SEC caliber talent going against those types of guys every day in practice. And he's really acquitted himself well as, really solidly as well. Malik Agbo was that guy that at Texas, if you remember what Nick Malone was to us, you throw a different jersey on us, and all of a sudden he's a third tight end because he has that type of athleticism. There's a reason that he's in an NFL camp right now. That's what Malik Agbo was at Texas. He was that guy. Throw another jersey on him, boom, we got a third tight end, and all of a sudden we can really start to pound you. Cooper Young, one of the holdovers from last year's squad. Another guy that's in the mix there. Josh Isoza, another transfer, power conference transfer. So you got Brandon, you got Philip Bowser, you got Trevor Bigelow. There's some names there that you're working through, but right now you're trying to get to the point where if you can have 7 or 8 guys, and we're going to get to the tackles here in a second, but 7 or 8 guys that you can have confidence in, and maybe 1 or 2 of those are swing men who play multiple positions on the interior, whether it's guard and center. But then when you get outside, here's what I like at the tackle spot. The one thing you always knew about Nick Cray was he was ridiculously athletic. I mean, when you look back to what he did as a basketball player in high school, he has just always been an incredibly formidable athlete. So he has those tackle feet that these skilled high level tackles in today's game have to have to contend with these edge rushers and these perimeter defenders. They're just so skilled and so talented and athletic. Nick has that. He's always had that. It was just a function of whether or not the game would slow down for him. And it was almost like over the course of the last couple of years, you were waiting on Nick to assert himself and take one of those jobs at one of those tackle spots. It was going to be difficult to do with 2 NFL guys in front of him, but he had that level of talent. And I think he's taken a step even since the spring. So there's a lot of potential there with an incredibly talented Nick Cray, especially when you look at what Rich likes to do within the scheme. There's so much zone blocking. There's going to be movement from engaging, disengaging, moving to the perimeter with that stretch play. Different things you're going to ask of this offensive line from an athleticism standpoint, maybe with a greater level of consistency. We asked for some of those things with the previous system. We're probably even more so now. Tykees Crawford, a guy also played some SEC football, comes in from Arkansas. That versatility we talked about with multiple positions. He's the type of guy who brings that as well and also has some really talented feet, kind of a dancing bear type. Xavier Bosley, West Virginia kid, came home. He was playing for Coach Rod down at Jack State. Went viral. Rich's story about him last week when he said, "Hey, first time I met his dad, he said, I burnt all your stuff, the West Virginia stuff after you left in 2007. He still ends up coming to Jack State playing for you." So Xavier is a guy who understands the system, understands the scheme. He was ahead of the curve when Rich jumped in the spring and started to implement it. Mikael Clay, another guy with size and talent on the perimeter out there. You have some names that are battling for time. What happens here is, what can Coach Bicknell do? I just went through kind of the inventory of most of those names because Mountaineer fans quite simply aren't going to be familiar.
Sure.
Outside of seeing a tweet when they initially signed out of the portal, a lot of them you probably haven't heard their name much since then because this isn't a staff that likes to identify individual players and talk about them. You probably noticed
especially
especially
offensive linemen too, right?
Especially a lineman, yeah, especially a lineman. As they're all battling to try and get to 7 or 8 guys that can come out and give you 5 guys to win with, but you need some swingmen as well. Now, here's what's interesting about this, and we're going to work from the O-line back into the quarterback and the skill positions, and that's what we're going to do as we kind of migrate through this conversation. But it's important to understand. Rich doesn't like to use the word identity. He says, look, whatever you're good at is what you're going to start the season and you're going to work into your opener doing. Well, if you look at what was playing out last year at Jack State, okay, everybody knows we've spent the whole off season talking about the fact that he brought in 60-some new faces at Jack State last year. And despite a slow start, rebounded, won the conference, did great things. Well, let's talk about that slow start because coming out of camp, he kind of felt like he keeps notes on all these things and he revisits his notes. He kind of felt like, hey, I like where we're at coming out of camp. I think we're ready. Now, the schedule did them no favors. with that 0-3 start. It was going to take a minor miracle for them to beat Louisville, Coastal Carolina is certainly no slouch. And then they faced a dangerous MAC team offensively that kind of outgunned them. And next thing you know, they're 0-3. But let's talk about what that 0-3 looked like versus what they became as a football team. You're trying to sort through who you are, what you're going to be, and where you're going to land. So last year, during that 0-3 start, I ran some numbers. Those first 3 games, Jack State ran the football as a team. How many times do you think they ran the football as a team?
Percentage-wise?
Let's go with this. Tyler Huff, quarterback. 12 carries a game those first 3 games. The next 10 games, Wes, 18 carries a game. Trey Stewart, first 3 games, averaged 8 carries a game. The next 10 games, 24 carries a game. See, you went from 19 carries a game as a team in that 0-3 start to 30 carries a game in the next 10 games.
Sure.
So you had to find out what you were all about. You were trying to crystallize and gel a lot of new faces, as we talked about. In that case, one of the things that was fundamentally different about Jack State, Tyler Huff, who ended up being Conference USA's MVP last year as their quarterback, he didn't even arrive until after the spring. Now, we got a situation at West Virginia. Look, no matter who it is or who it isn't, they were all there in the spring. Now, Khalil Wilkins was on the shelf with an injury, but he was still there. So all 5 guys, there's a reason Rich talked so ravingly about the quarterback room in the spring. He saw the potential then. So that was an advantage that we might have that he didn't enjoy last year. So they had to find out who they were as a team. Now, look at what we come out of the gate against. Yes, you have Robert Morris. So you get a, knock some rust off, figure some things out against an FCS opponent. Don't sleep on anybody, but it's still an FCS opponent. So you've got to figure some things out against them. Now, all of a sudden, you jump to week 2. You're heading to Athens, Ohio, to Peyton Stadium, and you're going to face a MAC defending champion in the Ohio University Bobcats, who, West, they were number 1 in the MAC against the run last year. And bear in mind, this isn't your typical contemporary team. Most of their talent on both sides of the ball returns, the Bobcats. They did a great job in talent retention. So most of their offense and most of their defense returns. Number 1 in the MAC against the run. And at home, they defend their turf very well. They were number 3 versus the run in all of college football in home games last year. Remember a couple of years ago when they knocked off Iowa State?
Yep.
Part of the way they did that, they held the Cyclones to 38 yards rushing in that game. So don't think you're just going to show up and gash them for 400 yards because they're a G5 team. You got to take them seriously. You're still figuring out who you are in week 2, trying to develop some element of continuity with this offensive line and all those names we just mentioned, trying to settle on some other things, the skill spots. And meanwhile, you're facing a team in week 2 that is pretty stingy against the run, no matter what level of football they play.
Yeah.
So it's not a great team to be working out those kinks. Jump from that into the backyard brawl. Say what you want about Pitt. They were number 3 in the ACC against the run. That's what Narduzzi prides himself on. He's going to have TFLs and sacks, knock you behind the sticks, get you off schedule, and stop the run. So what's interesting, you had some teams last year who had some success against Ohio U throwing the football. When you look at what Syracuse was able to do, when you look at what Ball State was able to do, they were both productive through the air. Pitt was 15th in the ACC against the pass. So what I'm getting at here, we know what Rich wants to become, and he's going to do whatever it takes to win football games. He's not hell-bent on being a 60% run guy or a 60% pass guy. He literally doesn't care. But what's that going to look like with 72 new faces on the roster, so many new faces on the offensive line, so many new faces on the skill spots against 2 of your first 3 opponents are pretty daggone good and pretty salty against the run as you're trying to develop some level of identity and work the kinks out. That's something to consider. I don't know if that means that early on we need to throw the football a little bit more than we will down the stretch, like they did last year at Jack State, because how many times have we heard Rich say, look, I have to learn from my own mistakes, and I have to learn with all those new faces. I thought we were ready last year at Jack State, but obviously we weren't starting 0-3. Now, of course, after the 0-3 start, they went on an 8-game tear, won 8 straight, won Conference USA. But he doesn't want to get off to that kind of sagging start.
Sure.
He can ill afford to. Now, again, Robert Morris is there for a reason. You want to be able to work out some kinks against them. But then tune-up time's almost over.
Oh,
You
yeah.
got to take Ohio U's coming off their first ever 11-win season. You're on the road. They've slayed some giants in that venue before. You're looking ahead to the Pitt game. I mean, take that game seriously. So do whatever you have to offensively to work things out and find a way to win the Ohio U game and come home to face that Pitt game and still figure out who you are. Does it make sense what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
you
100%.
might down the stretch be running the football a lot more. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe things will start humming and clicking right out of the gates, and maybe this O line has a level of synergy that you wouldn't expect with guys that haven't repped together that much and don't have a lot of continuity. But if not, maybe we're opening things up, which means some of the names we're going to get to here in a minute on the perimeter
Yeah.
better show up and make the most of those opportunities early on. But what are your thoughts there before we jump to the quarterbacks, Wes?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, honestly, some of those numbers that you laid out from Jack State and how they had the uptick in their run game, that like kind of surprised me on the surface, right? Because we all now associate Rich with the run game. But I think that that's important to note that, it's when you look at how the schedule lays out, like you mentioned, particularly in your second and third non-conference games against Ohio and Pitt, maybe we will see them throwing the ball more to start the season than we thought we were going to. But again, though, a lot of that's going to depend on who ends up being the quarterback, which we'll discuss here at some point. And I mean, you got to get in stadium with that offensive line to figure out how well do they pass protect versus how well do they run block, all these different things. But I think that that's the history element there of what we saw last year, and then kind of looking ahead to what the first couple of an opponents on the Mountaineers schedule do well defensively. That's a very interesting thing to keep an eye on, particularly post Robert Morris here about a month from now.
That's for sure. And of course, everybody wants to jump into the quarterback situation. And I'll say this: Rich wanted to go live on Saturday for a reason. That's one of the things that he has learned. I mean, he even said, like, not only when Pat White was here, but even more recently last year with Tyler Huff, you didn't truly know what you're getting with Tyler Huff until he had live bullets flying around him.
Sure.
Because, I mean, look, I'm the furthest thing from a running threat, but I remember back when I was playing, it would frustrate me sometimes when during team situations I had the red jersey on and you'd have some edge rusher, some linebacker. Oh, I would have had you. And I'm thinking, there is no way I would have let you shake me down. I would have shaken you off like a parka and a hot station wagon. Because I mean, I saw what was happening downfield. I'd have found a way to get loose and make that happen down. I'd have found my wire under that corner, whatever the case might be.
Sure.
And I'm not an athlete. That would frustrate me because we weren't live. I can't imagine being as talented with the skill set of some of these guys we got playing that position, and they're not alive. So once they were activated to do the things that they can truly do with their skill set, you saw some different things. You really did. You saw some play extension. You saw them keep some things alive. And the biggest thing I can say is this. Based on what you've seen in camp so far, based on what they've shown in scrimmages, you do understand why Rich is so optimistic about this room. Really, on some level, you can make the argument from, I don't even want to say top to bottom because that would infer there's a top, okay?
Yeah.
This is a true battle. I can't say it enough. Now, handicapping would suggest this guy or that guy. I get it. Everybody has their guesses. But as I said before, at this juncture, trust me when I say the eval process is still in play. Every rep matters. This is a critical week. And Saturday's a critical scrimmage. Evaluation is still going on. Decisions are still being made. But you can guess who you want to guess for whatever reason you want. Some guesses are safer than others. But everybody in that room brings some value based on what they've showed. So now it's just a matter of weighing the pros versus the cons. Okay. It's one thing to make mistakes because everybody's going to, especially with it only being their second semester in the system. Sure. You had spring and you have OTAs and you have camp. But it's another thing altogether to make catastrophic mistakes. Those are two different things. I mean, mistakes come in many forms. If you miss somebody on a deep crossing route, that's a mistake because it's a missed opportunity that might not resurface for a while. But if you have a bad exchange and up with the ball on the carpet, the defense gets it, or you make a silly read and a mental error in the quick game and give set the defense up with a short field, to defend because of where you're giving the other offense the football, that's a catastrophic mistake. So mistakes are always going to matter, but some matter more than others.
No doubt.
So how productive are you? We've talked about that before, but just as importantly, how consistent are you and how damaging are the mistakes that you make? So when you look at each of these guys, including the young guys, those two pups make some things happen. Can you mitigate the mistakes from Khalil Wilkins, from Scotty Fox? They both have twitch. They both make things happen with their arm. Nico, there's an element of consistency and confidence in Nico Marchiol that you knew he would work his way into from the time we signed him as Gatorade Player of the Year out of Arizona. I mean, he's always had that it factor, that moxie, and that's kind of what he's developed into. You started to see some of it last year, even in the Arizona game on the road, how he really handled himself so well in that environment. And made the plays that needed to be made. We've talked about Jalen Henderson. He made some special things happen, some wild plays at Texas A&M. Who's going to be most consistent? That's what this comes down to. Max Brown, the scrapper. You'll see good things. You'll see bad things. That's kind of a mixed bag with all these guys on some level, but who will be most consistent? The evaluation process is still ongoing. And if, in fact, you encounter what we talked about from a scheduling standpoint, and maybe you got to play pitch and catch a little bit more early on than maybe later when you settle into who you truly find yourself being offensively, who's best suited for that? So to be determined, but determined soon. Rich will be silly and to say anything before kickoff against Robert Morris. Matter of fact, we'll discuss this more as we get into the Robert Morris preview, but I would expect we'll do an over-under on how many quarterbacks will play in that game. That'll be fun. We'll do that. We'll do an over-under, put it that way. But this Saturday scrimmage will be critical.
Oh, no doubt. And the way you explain that from a quarterback standpoint makes a ton of sense. Listen, everybody is focused on a quarterback's highlight tape, right? But your low light tape is just as important. And that's what truly, like Jed, we talk a lot about how, I don't mean we on this show, I mean we like in what I do in my day job and hosting an NFL radio show. We talk a lot about how there's 4 unicorn quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, whatever order you want to put them in. I think most people would have Mahomes 1, and then, you can kind of start the conversation after there. But I think what really, I think that gap between Mahomes and the other 3 now is as narrow as it's ever been. And the reason for that is because the other 3 now, their low light tape looks like Mahomes. Like you used to see Joe Burrow take some terrible sacks and have some terrible turnovers. You would see Josh Allen have some terrible turnovers. Lamar Jackson, really bad, questionable decisions at the worst possible moment. Those guys now, Jed, Lamar threw 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions last year. Like Josh Allen went from like 17 turnovers to like 5 or 6. I mean, that's how he won MVP, is because those guys' low light tapes now, there's barely anything there. And that's hey, your highlight tape is great and that stuff matters, but your low light tape is just as important, and you got to be able to cut that stuff out of your game.
And you keep the football out of harm's way, and can you direct traffic appropriately when needed and make those crisp split-second decisions that are so necessary within this system? Can you do that? And can you find a level of comfort in really pushing the gas pedal? And you're going to have no time to revisit much of anything and move on to the next thing with another crisp decision and another crisp decision, and do whatever makes the defense pay the most. You heard Rich in his presser today talk about RPOs versus just as the zone read. And he bordered on getting technical and he backed off, but I think that the gold's found when he gets technical, right? I truly do. But that's a big part of what we do now. You can take your entire quick game package, which, old school, that would have been your 3-step game, right?
Right.
But you can take it and tie it to your run game. It's no longer just a bubble screen attached to your run game as a pass element. Now, any concept you have in your quick game, and sometimes even a little bit beyond your quick game, You can tie as an RPO, a run pass option element, to your run game. And that, again, that takes a skill set from your quarterback. Now, he's not going to overwhelm his quarterback and say, look here, at the same time, look there. I want you looking like that Steve Buscemi character with the eyes going crazy, right? No.
Oh,
He's going to
crazy
say,
eyes.
look, I want your eyes fixed here, but that's because you're making multiple decisions with your eyes fixed here. Some of it you'll kind of know pre-snap, but some of it's post-snap. And that's why it takes a certain skill. You have to be a high functioning decision maker, a quick processor. Rich always says his skill as a coach is to have quick eyes. That makes perfect sense to me because he can quickly identify something just in a split second by seeing it. Well, that's what his quarterbacks have to be able to do as well. Who's going to be able to do that and maximize that without hurting you? So all of them have shown flashes, including newbies. Again, don't sell anybody out. Everybody brings something to the table. When you go 5 deep and he says we're repping 5 guys, those 5 guys can play. It's just okay, offset by what?
Sure.
That becomes the question. Catastrophic mistakes or mistakes that aren't so
you can live with. You can live to fight another down.
And you're trying to work your way into a situation. We talked about the O-line where you can lean on your run game to some extent to really make this thing hum and make this thing click. And meanwhile, we've been so thin for a host of reasons, whether it was eligibility, whether it's been injuries at that spot. I mean, we'll talk about some of the names, or we got to be careful of who we mention in some cases here because of the eligibility piece. But you know what you got with Jaheim? And I mean, here's what's kind of fun. It wasn't until recently that if you think about this staff when they got here, what was going on with Jaheim in the spring, it wasn't until very recently that this staff actually got to see Jaheim truly live. Very recently.
Right.
And there's they know what the potential might be with Jaheim. That's not to say they're going to pat him on the butt and say, hey, go get him. You're ready to go. You're a finished product. Forget that. I mean, Rich has an old saying, I'm not going to pat you on the ass because you'll know what in my hand. And that's just not going to happen. It's funny because some of the media will say, outside of Jaheim, what starters? He said, hey, did you anoint Jaheim a starter that I didn't know? He's not going to do that, right? That's just not the game he plays. But you have situations from an eligibility standpoint that a couple guys that could really help us, that needs to be worked out. And I think I'm semi-confident it will. We'll see. But Dior Hubbard has made some steps. But again, you get into some of these names, it doesn't just apply to the quarterback spot. It also applies to other positions. Okay, yes, it matters how productive you are, but also what kind of mistakes are you making? What kind of mistakes are you making? That matters just as much. So, and it can be something as simple as turning the football over, the more obvious one the fans will see, or something less conspicuous, like you make a mistake in pass pro. Maybe you're supposed to, check release on a circle route, help the tackle or the tight end double team somebody, but if you don't get your blitz key or you don't get your read key blitz and you check release, and the quarterback comes to check down to you and you're still double teaming. And next thing you know, he's sacked. It could be something like that. So you have to refine your entire game. Cannon Katzer, the Division II kid, that's the guy we talked about in the offseason. He was the beauty of this is when you get some of these small college guys. Katzer's a guy that had a cup of coffee at Washington State before transferring to a D2 school, winning a national championship there. The beauty of it is, A, they're highly productive. Okay. B, they appreciate everything you have to offer them, and they're grateful and they're hungry. And there's also the part that I don't think enough people talk about. The impact that the training table and the weight program and the nutritionists can have on these small college kids who didn't have that available to them. And now all of a sudden they do. Sometimes you see them in the span of a couple of months put on 7 or 8 pounds of muscle and transform their body because they haven't been around that. Sure. So when you look at some of these small college kids transferring up like a Cannon Katzer, there's a reason. Phil Steele talked about this when we had him on the show. There's a reason that the hit rate for some of the smaller college kids transferring up is a little higher than some of the big college to big college transfer kids. So that's part of the reason why all those things contribute. Clay Ash is a guy in the room that I love having Clay Ash around. He's steady Eddie. He's dependable. The kids are always picking up what Clay Ash is putting down. He's a grinder. He's a worker. So that's another name. Don't count him out from stealing a couple reps here and there. And, a lot's come up since this attrition has taken place in that room. I think that's the first people heard of Sincere Bowers, this legit 4-3 guy that can do all these things that showed so much promise at the junior college level. And his junior college coaches even go so far as to say that, look, had he come back another year, it would have been really tough for West Virginia to offer him enough to get him because of what he might have done here. So he has the pop and the explosiveness and the potential. Who's going to emerge in this group as we're trying to find who we are against some stingy rush defenses early in the season behind a completely rebuilt offensive line? That's the question. I mean, who in this room can really, because you're going to need something other than Jaheim White.
Sure.
That's just the nature of what it's going to take. It's going to take 2 or 3 of these guys. Okay. And we don't know what shakes out or doesn't shake out with these guys and their eligibility issues. Hopefully it's resolved, but there's no guarantees of anything. So we don't know who the case that might be. Somebody better, somebody's going to need to, somebody is going to be, even when you think about what happened last year with Trey Stewart at Jack State. Trey Stewart was a guy for Rich at Jack State. He put up a gazillion yards, double-digit touchdowns, was nearly unstoppable down the stretch. He was a Division II kid transferring up to Division I. And a lot of people were like, what are you doing signing this guy? You sure he can even play here in Conference USA? Yeah, he was lights out in Conference USA. It just took a little bit for him to settle into the saddle. And once he did, they had a true weapon. Is there somebody like that in this room to give you a 1-2 punch with Jaheim White? That's something we're going to have to find out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the great Rich Rod offenses at WVU had that 1-2 punch in the backfield, right? And you're absolutely right. It's the nature of the position in his offense. Just in general, heck, you'd like to have 3 guys at running back that you're confident in. Because I mean, those guys, it's like a car. It's an old adage because it's true. It's like a car crash. Easy for me to say. It's like a car crash every play when you play running back. You absolutely feel confident in Jaheim, but you need some emergence behind him without a doubt. You could have prime Adrian Peterson in that backfield, Jed. You still need some depth options behind him.
Think of it like this, Wes. When you think of running backs, everybody wants to see the home run hitter. Everyone wants to see the Noel Devine-esque, 50, 60-yard splash plays that Jaheim can kind of give you when he's really humming. That's what you want to see. But the truth is, when you distill this down to its essence, what gets Rich's offense really clicking, we talk about rhythm-building plays when we talk about Zach Alley's defense, and we'll get into this in that preview next week. But in the videos that I did this summer on breaking down Zach's defense, one of the things Zach does is he limits you with those 10-plus yard plays, those plays that are critical to an offense's ability to build rhythm and get humming down the field and matriculate on a drive. Conversely, when you look at Rich's run game, it's not the 40 or 50 or 60-yard plays that make it different. Yes, those are there. And when you look at even where he ranked in Conference USA, he led Conference USA in a lot of those, longer run categories, and he ranked nationally. But when you look at where he ranked nationally last year, only one of those did he rank nationally number 1 in terms of length of rush, and that was 10-plus yards. They had 116 rushes of 10-plus yards. They led not just Conference USA, but the nation. So when you ask yourself, who can help Jaheim White get this thing humming, right? We're not asking somebody to pop a bunch of 50 or 60-yarders. Who can consistently enough give you those 10-plus yard rhythm-building plays offensively? When you're going no huddle, that's the kerosene you're throwing on the fire. Are those plays that gash the defense? When you can get 3 or 4 first downs in one snap, all of a sudden you're putting together a 6 or 7 play drive, and they don't know what hit them. They don't know what hit them. So that's one of the key areas that his offense has always been so potent. And that's made him different. Those rhythm building 10-plus yard rushing plays, which also serve him well once he gets to the red zone. He was number 1 in Conference USA, number 6 in the country last year with a touchdown rate of over 76%. So more than 3 out of 4 times they get to the red zone, they punch it in, A, because you're so exhausted and so blitzed by the time you get down there, you don't know what's coming, and B, because they're built to do the type of thing that helps you punch it in once you get to the red zone with those rhythm building type runs. Who can help? If you go through the host of names we talked about and some we didn't, who can help in that running back room that's populating that room get you those type of gains? Who can help drive that 10 plus yards? As that list grows, so does your production as an offense. That's something to keep an eye on. Don't pay attention to the 40 and 50 yarders. Those will come. Pay attention to the 10 plus yard runs that really develop your rhythm and help you become who you want to be offensively.
Absolutely. All right, Jed, as we start to get towards the end of this thing, you want to talk about some of these tight ends and some of these receivers?
Yeah, I think what's critical to start with the tight ends, Wes, is one of the wrinkles that Rich has developed. I think it's more of a contemporary or recent development with his strategy. He's done these things in the past, but to a lesser level. At Jack State, he really did a great job of becoming creative with multiple tight end sets. And that's why it was so critical for us in the offseason to address that room, make that room whole, and give Coach Nicewinder some things to work with and some tools to play with. Because here's some things to think about what he did last year at Jack State. 12 personnel. That's one running back, two tight ends. Okay. It accounted for 20%. 1 out of 5 times they ran the football, they did so out of 12 personnel. And they led the entire country in rushing touchdowns out of 12 personnel with 21. Tight ends matter in this system, and it's not limited to just 2 tight ends on the field. Wes, let's talk quickly about 13 personnel. Those are one running back, 3 tight end sets. Yes, 52%. 52% of the time they ran the football out of 13 personnel, it was a touchdown. 3 tight ends on the field, more than half the time they ran the football, it was a touchdown. They were number 2 nationally in 3 tight end rushing touchdowns with 13. So incredibly productive. And it's fun when you see how he does this from an alignment standpoint. It's not always, a matter of fact, it's not often. He attaches the tight end. Even when he typically goes with 2 tight ends, those are 2 offline tight ends, typically in a wing position. If he goes with a balanced look, you'll see one to the right, one to the left, balancing things out. But sometimes he kicks them both to one side and almost a double wing look. And that gives you so many options in the run game. You don't know if they're going to attack upfield or lead on a stretch play, or if they're going to kick back on a split zone and seal off the backside. You really don't, because they're not attached to the line of scrimmage. They're a yard off the ball, so they can go any direction and fire off and surprise the defense. And then with a 13 personnel look, it gets really fun because he has those set to the same side. He'll often go with 3 tight ends, put 2 in a wing spot, but then he'll attach one on the line of scrimmage in front of him. So you have 3 bunched together right there, running the football. But he also does some really creative and fun stuff off the run play action and sending those guys downfield. He had a weapon in Sean Brown last year, a really formidable tight end with size. The last 2 years at Jack State, actually, that he had a lot of fun with doing some of these things down in the red zone, some of these goal line packages out of these 13 personnel sets, throwing the football. But when you look at the tight ends in this room, Grayson Barnes was a legit weapon, okay, Northern Illinois. I mean, he was a downfield threat. He's an athlete. He has speed. He has a little bit of twitch for a guy his size, coming at 6'4", 220 plus. So he's part of that. These guys all bring different things to the table. That's what's fun about this room. Jacob Barrick, a guy, he's an Eastern Panhandle Martinsburg guy, but he played at Jack State for Rich. He's a guy who's going to bring tremendous value. He understands the system, and he's going to do a lot of it very well. 6'3", 230 pounds plus. None of them are going to blow you away with. In other words, don't think in terms of the tight end, the NFL tight end size that we had and what Neal did offensively. That made sense for what Neal was doing offensively, but that's not what's required of this Coach Rod run game. There's different requirements and different skill sets that play well with this system versus what we've seen in recent years with Neal. Gregory Genros, we remember him. He's a holdover from last year. He's a downfield threat. He has a skill set that could be fun as he continues to develop. Noah Braham, local name, Mountaineer fans know the name, 6'3", 240 plus pounds. He's just going to get stronger, continue to improve. Ryan Ward has quietly been making some things happen in camp since he arrived as a critical transfer during this last portal cycle coming out of North Carolina. He's a guy that's 6'4", 240 pounds, 43 at least. He's probably even, I would guess, maybe put on a little weight. A really strong kid, strong at the point of attack, but also making some plays in the pass game. Colin McBee, another name people know locally. It's fun because sometimes you'll ask them to do more fullback-like duties, but that's still the tight end room that's being deployed that is being deployed to take care of business in that role, in that capacity. But when you look at these names, just think, okay, sometimes you're going to see three of these guys on the field at once. Or are you going to see Grayson Barnes, Jacob Barrick, Ryan Ward? I don't know what combinations there might be, but you got a true downfield passing threat or receiving threat that can attack the seam and threaten these. A lot of teams like to go quarters coverage, right? Or some form of too deep, too high shell. When you got a tight end that can attack the seam and threaten one of those safeties, that really makes things difficult to the extreme for what you're trying to do defensively. All of them do different things. Grayson Barnes, don't typecast him. He's a receiving threat, yes, but you've heard the staff talk about how he's really held his own in the run game as well, and that's what you're going to have to do with Rich. You're going to have to be physical in the run game, obviously, but that's why I wanted to spend some time with the tight ends. It's not just your granddad's tight end read, your granddad's tight end scheme. He's doing some really fun, unique, creative stuff. We spent one of the episodes in breaking down Rich's offense. I'd encourage you to go back and look at that, talking about the different things he's doing out of those 12 and 13 personnel groups. And it's going to be fun to see how he deploys these tools and these resources in this room with these personnel sets.
No, it absolutely is. And it'll be a lot of heavy personnel, like you mentioned, 12 and 13 personnel. Can they get some mismatches? How do they, when they go to 12 and 13 personnel, how do teams defend them? Do they stay in base? Do they go to nickel? How do they start to counter that and get some matchups? That's all the fun stuff that we'll be, getting into here once the games start rolling. But yeah, certainly I think you're right. I think it's not the black hole tight end position that many people thought it to be for a long time for WVU football.
No, not at all. And we'll wrap things up, Wes, with the receiver room. When you work your way from the slots and then go outside, obviously there's some guys that have logged a lot of quality reps at that slot. So starting with Gallagher, West Virginia fans obviously most familiar with Rodney Gallagher, but Man Singleton, Oren Singleton did some good things. He was a weapon up in the MAC. At Eastern Michigan, he was a legit weapon. It was one of those situations where he hurt Jack State in playing against them. So they're like, hey, give me some of that. So once he entered the portal, they latched onto him. And Jared Bowie, another guy, did some great things at Martinsburg. Dream come true for him to have the opportunity to come back home, knows the system, understands the system. He's helping the rest of that room. Cyrus Trawl, nasty kid. He's just nasty. You don't want to play against him. He's a transfer that we brought in this offseason. You got Armani Weaver, you got Tyshawn Deuce, Cameron Pitchford. He's been an interesting kid in camp coming out of Texas as a freshman, but a little bit battle tested when you look at the top handful of guys, the top three particular, Gallagher, Singleton, Bowie. So those guys have played some quality football. So it's going to be interesting to see how we weaponize that, what we have them doing. And then when you move on the perimeter, you're going to have sometimes these guys will play a little bit of both because they're going to be cross-trained. But the old X position that we would have the split end, you have Cam Vaughn, who was remarkable as a freshman last year, came in as a high school quarterback and moved to the receiver spot for him at Jack State, really came on strong. Once he developed, we talk about that 10-game stretch late in the year, Cam Vaughn was a critical part of that. I would expect really good things for him as a Mountaineer. He's a guy that you can really depend on and lean on and trust. You got Christian Hamilton, another guy that came up from Carolina, and he made some big plays, some splash plays for the Heels down there. So another potential weapon. A little bit of size here. Cam Vaughn, 6'2". Christian Hamilton, he's 5'11", but you have Logan Ramper, another small college kid transferring in at 6'2", 216 pounds. Jarrell Williams is a survivor. I mean, that's what I'll say. Jarrell Williams, been around, seen some things happen, has experienced a lot. He's still in the mix, 6'2", 200 plus pounds, nice size on him. And then finally, we're going to close out with, Jaden Bray is going to step forward at some point and show what he can do. And people's just jaws are going to hit, their chin's going to hit the ground. I mean, it really is. When you look at the flashes that he showed when he was healthy at Oklahoma State, And he showed flashes of it when he was healthy last year in camp, but then he had those injury issues. He made some big plays for us early in the year. He plays beyond his size, and his size is considerable at 6'2", 205. I mean, he is a very physical, overwhelming presence at his best, and it's going to be fun to see what he might be able to do in the system because, again, once this thing gets humming and becomes what it will become, somebody on the perimeter is going to have single coverage opportunities to punish somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Now, will that be Cam Vaughn? Will that be Christian Hamilton? Will that be Jaden Bray? Somebody's going to emerge and have those opportunities just by the virtue of what we do offensively. They're going to have to commit resources toward the box. But again, early in the season, as we're tinkering and finding out who we are, who do we lean on? We're potentially throwing the ball a little bit more than we will done. Who knows? Justin Smith Brown is a guy transferred from South Carolina State. Don't sleep on him. He's hungry. He's talented. He's physical. He's more polished than you might expect. I think we can expect some really good stuff out of Justin Smith Brown. Remember that name, Preston Fox. Can't express enough how excited I am to have him back in the mix, back in the fold. He was part of media this week. It's just great to have Preston back around. The locker room loves him. He's a guy who can do a little bit of everything. So he can play the slot, but he's more comfortable on the perimeter. But it just brings tremendous value as a returner. And then Jordan McCants, another guy who transferred in from Jack State, understands the system, knows the system. You can't even the value they bring off the field in meeting rooms as people have questions, they're trying to acclimate and learn the language. They can turn to guys like Jordan McCants and say, wait a minute, what's he mean by this? As opposed to that, oh, well, he means this. That matters as you're sitting in those meeting rooms with your notepads and you're trying to learn from your position coach. So, this was as much. I don't know if it was an offensive preview. How can you preview something with 72 new names as a breaking down what we know or how they might fit or what we're looking for? Or there's a lot of questions to be determined. Some of those questions will be answered in the next handful of days. More will be answered on Saturday in that big scrimmage. So by next week, you'll see some things starting to sort themselves out. But again, these aren't state secrets. Outside of the quarterback spot, Rich isn't going to sit on this like it's some unhatched shell and just say nobody's going to know anything about anything. It's outside of the quarterback spot, which it's not gamesmanship. It's just what do you stand to gain by telling anybody beforehand? You really don't. But so that's where it's at. That's where it's at. I hope that we made some sense out of some things for some people.
It's a lot to digest, no doubt. And it will be throughout the course of the regular season, certainly. But I also don't think once Rich gets this thing humming and gets his culture established that he's going to be bringing in 72 new guys every single offseason. That's not going to be the case either. Yeah. So, great breakdown there, Jed. And hey, listen, plenty for us to keep an eye on. We'll follow up on, after this week's practice and the big scrimmage Saturday. Maybe we'll have some new information for next week when we do our defensive preview as well, too. So plenty for us to keep an eye on here.
Last thing I would add, Wes, a bullet point. One big difference between Rich the last time he was here versus now that you'll see, you've heard him talk about it, but we didn't run a lot of 11 personnel when he was here before. It was more two backs. It was more 20 personnel with no tight end.
Yeah.
Sometimes Owen would play both the back or the tight end, but he is overwhelmingly an 11 personnel team now. So there will almost 3/4 of the time you'll see a tight end on the field. You will. You'll see at least one tight end on the field about 3/4 of the time, and that's a big change between now and let's say 2006, 2007. So I wanted to, if you didn't know already, that's a heads up on that. So
good stuff. Love it, and we will be back next week with the defensive version of this position breakdown and some unit previews here. But that will do it for this edition of ITG. Thanks to everybody for tuning in and for listening. Reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, we would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and like this video. And, if you're stopping at your favorite local watering hole throughout West Virginia in the next few days, get yourself some beer trucking beer as well too, and make our guy Owen happy. But for
looking can.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah. Well, listen, I already texted him and told him. I was like, and he told me he's bringing some cans to the tailgate. But I was like, no matter what happens, I at least need a couple of those cans. So pretty cool. Got his signature and his likeness on the can. So cool stuff to see our guy Big O getting. I mean, it's long overdue that the runaway beer truck has his own beer. This should have happened 15 years ago. This should have happened, but better late than never, certainly.
Well said.
For the beer truck Big O, for our co-host / producer / Mr. Do-It-All Schuyler Callihan, and of course the signal caller Jed Drenning, I am Wes Uhler. The one thing we ask of you is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. You've been In the Gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.